And welcome into another edition of Shooting the Breeze. My name is Tim Mulhaupt, and I am joined once again by Samir Kumar as we're here to give you our thoughts on the latest and greatest happening around the world of sports and in New York. As Samir, we're getting ready for the Super Bowl, but also just in the past week and a half or so, we've heard some great New York athletes hear their names called to make it into their respective Hall of Fames, and that, of course, is Derek Jeter and Eli Manning. And Samir, I know you and I both grew up watching these guys, both on TV and in person. Both of us being from the New York area, we were able to go and see some of these performances live and in person and up close. And I think it's only fitting that we start with a guy that we've both seen together, and that's Derek Jeter. And Samir, I know we both have a special place in our memories and in our fandom for Derek Jeter. But what was your reaction upon hearing the news that he was inducted into the Hall of Fame?
Well, first of all, there was just no surprise that Derek Jeter got into the Hall of Fame. It was only a matter of time. He was one of those athletes that just gets an automatic induction. You don't even need to vote for him. But the funny thing is, you do gotta vote for him, and one person decided that he's not Hall of Fame worthy. Now, I don't know what the motivation behind that writer was to not put him on his ballot. First of all, the ballot was pretty weak this year. There's only one other guy that went in with Derek Jeter, and that is Larry Walker. So, I mean, are you just trying to get a rise out of people, or are you just trying to be different? Like, I don't understand what your motivation is right there. Are you just, you know, I guess you're just trying to be different, and you're just trying to get a rise out of people and get attention. So, as Derek Jeter famously said after that, he's not even thinking about it. So, let's remember Jeter for what he did on the field as a New York Yankee. Um, Captain Clutch. He's obviously known as the captain. So, you know, what were you gonna say, Tim?
Well, I was just going to add to your point, and I think it's, I don't know. We don't, know who specifically voted. And I remember last year, I think with Rivera, there was the one guy who was going to not vote him in, and then he changed his vote because he revealed who he was and got, a lot of flack for it. And on one hand, it's like, I respect the right for everyone to vote how they please. That's an American institution in democracy and all those things. But I agree with you in the sense that at this point, you're doing it just to be obtuse. It's not as if that person isn't going to vote Derek Jeter in later on. It's more or less just, them trying to just get their way, not knowing that they're not going to get their way, but just, throwing it up there as a statement. And I really don't know why. And I like, to your point, I don't really understand who in the field is really going to outrank Jeter in this one. And, we know his career has just been filled with highlight reel play after highlight reel play. I know he gets knocked for some of his defense, but, at the end of the day, he was more than possible at that point throughout his career, not just toward the end, but also, throughout his entire career. He wasn't maybe the Gold Glover that he was voted to be all the time, but at the same token, he was certainly more than capable of being a very minimum a passable fielder, and at times a great fielder. So, I don't really understand it. I think it's more scorn than anything. Maybe it's a personal reason. I don't really get why, but at the end of the day, Derek Jeter is where he belongs, and that's in the Hall of Fame. And of course, like you alluded to, he certainly played it off in the classic Jeterian fashion, if that's a word, in which he said the right things, and he even made a joke on Yes Network. I think it was with Jack Curry, where he said something to the effect of, "Was it you, Jack?" with as far as who the one voter was, but. No, I mean, and Samir, I think, in our last episode, we talked a lot about the legacy of Kobe Bryant, both on and off the court. And, with Derek Jeter, on the field, it was, I can remember very vividly his final game. And you knew at the end of that game when he had the opportunity to walk the game off and he came to the plate, it was almost, and I know non-Yankee fans will hate every word of this, but it was almost a foregone conclusion that he was going to come up with a special moment there. I mean, you could even go back to his 3,000th hit where he clocked a home run. I mean, all of these things are typical for Jeter in that he always, always, always found a way to put an iconic moment on his resume. Now, of course, there are times when I'm sure he's had those opportunities, and just like any other player, didn't always capitalize in every single opportunity, but more than the average player by a long shot. He was a guy that in the brightest of moments, when the all eyes were on him, he thrived, and that is such a rare trait, even amongst athletes who are used to being that guy. But when you get to that professional level, and there's so much talent and so much skill, it's hard to continue to be that level of player where you've grown up always being the best player in your league, in your park, in your team. Jeter has always been that guy, and you can make a case for other players being maybe a little more talented. Not saying there's many, but there are some during his playing days. But as far as this Hall of Fame class, he absolutely deserved first ballot Hall of Fame honors. It is a shame that he wasn't unanimous, but at the end of the day, I'm happy he's in. And Samir, I don't know. What would you say you have a favorite Jeter moment?
My favorite Jeter moment has definitely got to be when he hit that 3,000th home run with a 3,000 hit with a home run. I remember just sitting on the couch. It was during the summer of 2011. I was just, embracing it. Like the moment was just building up. I can just tell that, obviously there's an anticipation in the crowd. I wasn't at the actual game. I was enjoying it from my couch. And David Price threw the pitch, and it went down the middle, and Jeter just put his bat on the ball and just went out of the park. So that was just history with an exclamation point, like Michael Kay said. So that's one of the moments that stood out to me. I was a little too young to really, fully appreciate in the moment Jeter diving into the stands for that diving catch. I mean, that's what I think about Derek Jeter as well when I think of his legacy, just his willingness to give it his all, go out there, forget about the bumps and bruises, you know, because at the end of the day in life, pain is temporary, glory is forever. And that's what Jeter embodied every time he took the field. And, defensively, yeah, like as you alluded to before, he has been knocked around for his lack of range or his lack to make plays sometimes. But, you know, when you think of a shortstop, you don't think of them for their bat. You don't think of them for batting over 300 every year and averaging between 20 and 30 home runs every year. You think of them pretty much as a defensive stalwart, batting in the lower ends of your everyday lineup. So what Jeter is able to do with that shortstop position, man, it for 20 years. There should be nothing taken away from that because doing it in New York in itself, being a New York Yankee for 20 years, that that's just an amazing feat in itself because the Yankees are such a business-run organization. They're willing to get rid of you. Brian Cashman told Derek Jeter straight up to his face one time, I prefer Troy Tulowitzki over you." That's one thing I don't necessarily love about Brian Cashman. He can be a little bit too blunt sometimes, and it takes a toll on relationships. It takes a toll between the organization and its star athletes. So yeah, I guess it's a business. You gotta get you guys out there. But there's got to be a point in time where you just got to take a step back and recognize that this guy brought us 5 championships and gave it his all every day out there on the field. So he deserves to have the respect to be retired a New York Yankee and get to live out his legacy at a shortstop that he wanted to be known as. He never wanted to play center field, move to third like a lot of players do later on in their careers. He wanted to be a shortstop, and he earned that respect just by leading by example every day out in the field, whether he'd be batting or on defense, everything about him, and he did it with class. He never was in the headlines for the wrong reasons. I think that's just a career to be celebrated, given that he did it as a New York Yankee, and it was a little bit before social media, became a big thing, but it's still tough playing in the tabloids of New York every day, the biggest market, most pressure to win championships. We saw A Rod sometimes struggle with that, and it's only human. Sometimes you are gonna struggle through that, but you know, Jeter definitely had his controversies with A Rod during their playing careers. There was definitely reported out there that the two didn't get along. That's kind of one knock on Jeter there and A Rod. Both of them just couldn't seem to coexist until they won their championship in 2009. But as I digress here, overall, just everything about Jeter taking the field and being a New York Yankee is something that will stick for me with me forever. And it's just amazing that he was just even one vote away from being unanimous as a position player.
When, to your point about his iconic moments, I can remember almost all where I was for almost all of those plays. The only one that's a little fuzzy for me is the flip. I was 8 years old when he did in the playoffs rather, against the A's, when he pulled that play off. I can't remember if I was up watching that game because it was later. And of course, being on the East Coast, it was the times different. The time was later than where I am now, where it would be a little bit earlier given the hour difference. But no, I remember when he dove into the stands because I was at a friend's house, actually sleeping over at a friend's house, and we had already been sent up to bed basically because we're still pretty young, and there was a bedtime, and I could hear from downstairs my friend's dad, who's a very good family friend, huge baseball fan, huge New York Mets fan, hates the Yankees, and when the Yankees, obviously they were playing the Red Sox that night, and I could hear him from downstairs go, "Oh my God, he's 4 rows in," and I didn't really know what that meant, and I was like, I knew he was watching the game, but I was like, what does he mean? And then the next morning I came downstairs and he had like a newspaper article from the newspaper when that was still a piece of technology we all utilized, where he was bruised and bloodied, but he showed us the pictures, and YouTube was not yet a thing, I think, at that point, so we couldn't go and reference it, but I saw it eventually online and was just really amazed by that. And the other Jeter story I'll tell, which is completely really not much of a story, but it's funny because it helped shaped my baseball fandom. I started playing baseball as a kid because of Derek Jeter, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that. I'm sure plenty of people were, and I became a Yankees fan because of Derek Jeter because I thought he was awesome. When I was about 5-6 years old when he was really starting to come on strong. And I just thought, this guy's really cool, and I'd like to be the next Derek Jeter. And of course, I stopped growing a little early, and my athletic skill set never really came around to be that. But my dad and I were at a Yankees game. I think it was maybe the second Yankees game I'd ever been to, and I was probably, I would guess, 10 or 11. And we were leaving the game. It was after the game had ended. The Yankees had won. It was regular season, so it wasn't like a massive stage or anything, probably midsummer. And we were coming out around the stadium. We'd already gotten out of the parking garage. And we were pulling around the stadium, and we heard screaming, and it was kind of concerning. It was nighttime. It was dark. There was a lot of cars. So we didn't know what that was. And then all of a sudden we get to this intersection with an access point for cars on the backside of the stadium, and there's cops there, and they stop us. So we're like, oh my God, what's going on? And then all of a sudden this car comes out of the back of the stadium. It was this lot that had been fenced off, and it pulls into our intersection, stops for just a split second, and then pulls forward as the cops wave the car along. And our headlights, because we were the first car in the intersection, hit this car. And my brain almost left my body because in our headlights, lo and behold, was the captain himself, Derek Jeter, driving a gold Mercedes with, I believe it was his sister, because I've seen pictures of her when she's been at games, and another woman in the car, who I presume was probably his girlfriend. And after the car, I kid you, what's that?
One of his many girlfriends.
Well, I kid you not. This is not me misremembering things. I remember this vividly. As he pulled away, there was, I think, 3 women, probably college age, mid-20s, chasing the car, and they had been the ones screaming. They ran past the police and, chased the car as he drove away into the night down the block. It was the funniest thing I think I've ever seen, and as that had happened, I said, oh my God, it's Derek Jeter. My dad goes, no, it's not. And then he got a good look as our headlights shone into the car and saw the guy's face, and he goes, oh my God, it's Derek Jeter. So that was a really cool memory. Not that, we got to talk to him or anything, but that was a really cool memory, and I was kind of wired that whole night. I don't know how I went to bed that night as a kid, and just absolutely floored that I had just been basically right across not even across the street. I'd been just a few feet away from Jeter in his gold Mercedes. So that was a really cool moment, and I remember that as a kid, and I remember that, like I said, very vividly. I was probably in fourth grade, maybe, at that point, maybe fifth grade, and that was just really awesome. So, and I've been back to Yankee Stadium a bunch of times. I'd seen Jeter play. I think when he hit his 3,000th, I don't know if I was watching it at that point. I think I was walking outside or something, and it popped up all over my phone. But in any case, just at the end of that story and ramble, I think for Derek Jeter, he was just a tone setter from the moment he got to the bigs until the moment he retired. And you can say what you want about him as an owner. He's certainly learning the ropes there, and certainly has made some early mistakes, but not ones that he really has to be overly concerned about. And I know he's part owner. He's really the baseball operations side, and he's got partners and whatnot. And a lot of Miami fans aren't thrilled about him being there and having the influence he's had. But I do believe he's got a vision, and I think he should get some benefit of the doubt with that. And I think with all of that said, he has earned every dollar he's made, and also that he's earned where he is. He has the luxury of being who he is. And I know as he kind of got into the end days of his career, and even it shone through a bit with his clashes with A-Rod, certainly has himself an ego, a sizable one, and you know what? He's deserved it. He's handled himself throughout his entire career with a lot of humility. He has the right to have that ego and to have that confidence, because that's who he's always been. I remember they were saying in that interview after he was inducted into the Hall of Fame on Yes Network, he said, the only real time he didn't feel confident was when he was in the minor leagues initially, because of how he struggled initially. That was really the only time he ever said he felt, just not as confident as he typically was. So, and then ever since then, he's just been a performer in the biggest and brightest stages, and got to give him credit. I mean, and not only that, he's a .310 career batting average player. He hit just a tremendous amount of hits, obviously. The total that he finished with was just under 3,500. He hit 260 homers, which shouldn't be sniffed up at, or nose turned up at, as you were mentioning. Shortstops aren't always big bats. You see some stars today that are, but the majority of which are not always that offensive. They're more lauded for defensive play and the fact that they can have the ability to make plays in the gap there in the hole. And hey, he made his fair share, even not being the rangiest and most athletic. I mean, think about the jump throws and the backhanded plays he made. All of those things really lend themselves to being one of the most, I think, the accurate ways to describe him is he was entertaining on the field any given game you went to, and that's all we can really ask, in addition to just him being conducting himself in a professional way, and he always did that. So for me, it was awesome to see that. This was my childhood hero, and to see him make it to that point and this level as he deserves to was tremendous.
Absolutely. I think what you touched upon is that he's still learning the ropes as an owner. One thing that I do laud him for is that he's making his players, I think, bilingual. I think I read something recently that he wants them to speak English and Spanish. I think that's very important to the community of Miami, because we know that there's a large Cuban influence in Miami, and their first language generally tends to be Spanish. So that will bring the community together. I think that's something that um, will serve that'll serve the community and the team well. And he also touched up on his ego, a little bit. Yeah, I did notice that. I mean, he would still bat second for the Yankees when, you know, generally speaking, a manager would have moved him down to like the nine hole as soon as possible, because his performance just wasn't matching up to the name anymore. But, you know, at the end of the day, the Yankees, those teams were going nowhere. Their best player, might have been Jacoby Ellsbury during that run. Even want to throw in a pitcher. Yeah. Oh, if you want to even just make it a pitcher, might have been Masahiro Tanaka, who was just starting to come on to his own. Because obviously during the 2014 season, A Rod was suspended the whole season. I didn't agree with that, but well, that'll be a conversation for another day for sure. I have some pretty strong thoughts on that entire situation. But going back to Jeter here, um, it is earned, like you said. He got us 5 championships, and he was consistent pretty much for the duration of his career. I remember 2012, he kind of had a renaissance season. He was batting over 300. His power started to come back a little bit. His RBI total went up. He started to look like Derek Jeter of old a little bit with the bat. I thought a lot of people thought that he can go on to play until he's like 45 years old and be a DH eventually. I know that's not how Jeter would have wanted it. He wanted to still go out there and be a shortstop, but I think he still had the talent to be a backup later on to his career. I think Kobe actually had that same ability. If Kobe really wanted to, he could still be playing today. That's how good he kind of was at the end of his career. I mean, he was averaging about 18 points during his last season, but a lot of that had to do with just him taking a lot of shots that were open to him. But if Kobe really wanted to, he could have transitioned himself into a six man and still have been playing today because Vince Carter is still playing and Vince Carter is older than Kobe. But that's that I respect the fact that Kobe and Jeter both want to go out on top and still go out there and be starting and significant contributors to their team. They want to be the top dogs instead of taking a step back. So when you win 5 championships, as they both have done for their organizations, you kind of do earn that respect and the benefit of the doubt to be paid for your name brand because it does bring marketing to your team, still boosts jersey sales, ticket sales, and the ability to market a farewell tour. And if you market all that kind of stuff, you do have to give them the respect to perform in a situation where they want to be remembered and recognized for. So, my takeaway there is that if if a player wins you multiple championships, they do kind of have a right to flex their muscle at the end of their career a little bit and just continue on to do what made them so passionate about the sport and just kind of go for the ride instead of rushing them out of the league. But you know, overall, Jeter was a childhood hero of mine too. I just remember watching games. He always came up big in the biggest moments, and you know, there was a point in time where the bat would always just hit the ball in the perfect spot, and it would go into the right part of the field for base hits. Jeter is just as consistent as they come. He was as humble as they come for the most part, even though towards the end his ego started to show a little bit. Overall, you when you think about the New York Yankees, yeah, there may have been other great players, but the first person that comes to your mind is Derek Jeter because of what he's been able to accomplish and the amount of time he's been able to stay on a team that would get rid of you with the snap of the finger.
Mr. November, the captain, Captain Clutch, or simply just DJ, a Hall of Famer, a Rookie of the Year recipient, a 5-time World Series champion, a 14-time All-Star, 5-time Gold Glove, 5-time Silver Slugger, a World Series MVP, and an All-Star MVP as well. Derek Jeter, congratulations on a fantastic career, and thank you for all of those memories. And I can't believe it's been already nearly 6 years since he retired. That is unreal to me. But Samir,
let me jump in here real fast. Just going back 6 years ago, man, I remember I was a freshman in college, second semester. I got an alert to my phone, breaking. Derek Jeter announces he'll retire at the end of the 2014 season. I was just like,
do you know why I remember that? Because that was the day before my 21st birthday. And my 21st birthday is not even a blur. That's not even That's not even an accurate statement because that would be doing it too much justice. Because of that, I did an unholy amount of shots that night for Derek Jeter, and they just kept coming. And I remember the first 2 hours after getting out of classes, and then I don't remember anything. And I remember waking up the next day feeling every bad decision I've ever made.
Well, hey, you had a hell of a 21st birthday because if you remembered your 21st birthday, or at least the weekend of your 21st birthday, you did it wrong. Yeah, that's just the bottom line. Everybody forgets their 21st birthday the night of their celebration of it. But going back to what I was saying as well, yeah, I just remember sitting there in class. It was actually a class that I ended up skipping for the rest of the semester. It was Sociology 100, Bill Rose. I know for some reason you friended me on Facebook, even though I skipped your class. If you somehow come across this podcast, just I just want to apologize for skipping your class, but you know, I had better things to do during that time than sit in a lecture hall. And I mean, I'm sorry, man. All due respect to you, if you put your stuff online and make it easy to get an easy A, you know, I'm sorry, man. Being a college kid, I have better things to do with my time than sit in a lecture hall, you know, and yeah, and get like an easy A for it. So, thank you for that easy A, and thank you for giving me a moment to remember where I was, where I found out that Derek Jeter was about to retire. So, just going back though to that time, you start to see all these, commercials, all these advertisements, thanking Derek Jeter, the Retupect commercials. I just remember all the chills it brought to me. I'm like, man, this is my childhood. Like it's about to end. Like all the tributes, all the everything. Even like he got Boston fans to give him a standing ovation. And obviously that rivalry runs deep because for much of the 2000s, those teams hated each other. But that's another conversation for another day. Um, but no, I just remember all the chills like during that time period. I remember, it was at your party. This was in either late August or early September. I remember, yeah, I think it was your first party at K3. You know, I, Jeter's career is wrapping up. I had a few too many shots that night, probably a few too many beers as well. Let's just say a lot of alcohol was in my system that night, and it came to a point where I just started to forget the night, and you know, I found myself apparently on the couch one night and starting Derek Jeter chants. I remember hearing about it the next day. I remember my friend Nick Califano or Califano. I'm sorry, I call you Cali, so I forget how to pronounce your last name at this point. So let's go by Cali here. I remember I overheard him in my suite saying, "Yeah, Samir was chanting Derek Jeter on the couch." I was like, in my room. I was like, "Did I? I don't remember that." So I came out. And said, "Hey, did I do that?" He go, "Yeah, you did." I'm like, "Oh, well, respect to a legend." So then I showed up to your party the next day because you guys had a back to back. I was like, "I gotta rock my Derek Jeter T-shirt, man." You know. So I did that. I was like, "Okay, just in case I get super drunk again, I'll have a Derek Jeter shirt on to justify my love for him." And I remember on the D bus, I started chants for Derek Jeter too. You know, and I remember even the year after, I was starting Derek Jeter and an A-Rod chant. That's just
Yes, I remember that. I remember being present for that. I think I was visiting because that was a year after I graduated, if I recall correctly. We need to start a separate podcast to retell college stories. John Krell, paging John Krell.
and Nick Kyden and Kevin Linares.
Yep. We Pat Bauer, man. We could. Some of this is documented somewhere. I don't know if that's a good thing, but
But I guess just to put a culmination in all this, I remember, you know, I had to come home for Derek Jeter's last game. I wanted to be home on my couch to just kind of take everything in. It was a long weekend anyway, but I was actually at the game before the last game. I remember just he was DHing that day, but everybody there, who didn't want to pay $200 for a ticket, I paid like $20 for a ticket. I was more than happy by doing that. I was at a second to last home game, and the same energy was still out there. Derek Jeter chants. Everybody wanted him to give a curtain call, but he didn't oblige for the curtain calls because he knew that he was having a bad day. So what would he be curtain calling about? That's one thing that he held himself to such a high standard that he didn't want to celebrate mediocrity. So it is kind of fitting that his career ended with a game-winning base hit, even though some will say that it was staged. But staged or not, you know, yeah. So if it, I mean, I'm not fully buying that it was staged, but even if it was, he still got the bat on the ball and got it into the outfield and drove in the game-winning run. So, hate it all you want. Derek Jeter is Captain Clutch for a reason, and Jeets, thanks for giving all Yankee fans around this area something to cheer for the duration of their childhood, making people want to be you. Always carrying yourself with class and humility, and just overall, just being a good person, man. You have inspired a whole generation of baseball players. Garrett Cole and Mike Trout have gone on to famously say that you were their favorite player growing up. So um, just know that you were an inspiration.
And he was that he was. And Samir, moving forward into a player that I think should be an inspiration for a lot of people, and including the NFL fan bases that are not in Foxborough, Massachusetts. The career of Eli Manning has attracted quite a bit of polarizing opinions, and there absolutely was a time where he had I think a higher end to his game than, of course, the recent years, which you could attribute not only to him, but really not having enough help or outside of Odell Beckham Jr. before he was traded away. But Eli Manning, of course, is a player that, to me, announcing his retirement last week and really showing emotion in doing so, and his love for the game, I in my mind, as a non-Giants fan, really have enjoyed having him in the NFL. And I have seen him play, and I have seen beyond just the Super Bowls. I've seen him play in person. I've seen him play, on TV, and it's. I have no ill will toward the Giants. I don't always agree with their decisions. I don't necessarily like their general manager, but of all things, it's Eli Manning was a player that was inspiring because he kind of was the underdog his whole life. As an outsider looking at it, I can see, obviously you see Peyton Manning as the big brother and setting a legacy that was really hard to play alongside, let alone follow. He was playing in the same league at the same time as him for a good chunk of both their careers. And of course, Peyton was the more talented player. But Eli Manning matches him in Super Bowl wins. And also, not only does that, he's the David that takes on the Goliath and Tom Brady twice and beats him twice. So, there's a couple top 10 figures Eli retires with in the entire history of NFL passing records and quarterback records. He's in the top 10 in a couple of major categories. For me, Samir, and I'm going to pose this to you, it's I have no doubt that Eli Manning is the Hall of Fame player that he will eventually be. There's no question in my mind. More than that, just, of course, I think you're going to agree. I'd be, unless, you throw me a curveball here, but as a Giants fan, you are a front row seat. You had a front row seat for a good chunk of his career. What were first, I should ask you, what were your thoughts when he announced his retirement? And then just, similarly, what did you enjoy most about Eli's career?
Well, first of all, I wasn't surprised at all when he announced his retirement. I think it was a matter of time. He's starting to back up Daniel Jones, and I think he had no interest in continuing his career somewhere else. I think he wanted to be a New York Giant for life because he is the Mr. Giant, basically, if that's what you want to call him. When you think of the New York Giants, you think of Eli Manning immediately because of his 2 Super Bowl rings that he brought to us. And not only did he bring 2 Super Bowl rings, they were historic wins. Tom Brady has never lost to anybody in the Super Bowl except for now the Eagles. But prior to that, Eli and the Giants were the only guys that could say, we've beaten this guy in the Super Bowl, and they've beat the second undefeated team in NFL history in the game that mattered most. Nobody picked the Giants to win that Super Bowl. Nobody. No, I didn't even pick them to be like. to win that Super Bowl. I was 12 years old, going on 13 that year when the Giants beat the Patriots. I remember thinking, oh man, it'll be such a pipe dream if the Giants can somehow pull this off. I remember thinking, man, like, but how are they going to beat this Patriots team? How are they going to prevail and beat an undefeated team? So going to my favorite moment of Eli Manning's career, it has to have been when he was about to get sacked in the final seconds of the fourth quarter of Super Bowl 42. I thought he was done, man, but he was able to break that tackle. He was able to get out and stay in the pocket, and he had to back up, but you know, just the fact that he's able to get out of two defenders about like that were about to bring him down. That was amazing in itself. How he had the focus and the core control to just get out of that. It was like almost destined. Then he just flung it up. I remember thinking, oh, this is not going to go anywhere. It's over. All of a sudden, David Tyree jumps up and grabs the ball over his helmet, and there were defenders on him, and he was able to go down to the floor and keep the football in his hands. That was just outstanding, and you know, just all around like in that Super Bowl because just kind of brought everything together. Like that the Giants were just true underdogs, and it would take a miracle for them to beat that Patriots team. But guess what? A miracle happened, and they were able to take down that Patriots team. I don't like the Patriots. I don't like anything about them. So, it just felt good that my favorite team was able to get it done and beat them. I don't like Bill Belichick whatsoever. I've learned to respect Tom Brady a little bit more in recent years. I can't say I've always loved him, but he's just the greatest quarterback of all time. Like, I think at this point it's not really up for debate. I remember I used to try to debate Peyton over him. We can have that debate at a later date because there's a lot of things to go through when it comes to that. But I think what Tom Brady has been able to accomplish in the second stage of his career just puts him over the top. I think I just gained a level of respect for him that I've come to accept. But I still don't like the Patriots. And it still felt great when Eli Manning then found Plaxico Burress in the end zone for the touchdown. I was like, let's go! Like, oh man, I just remember I was 12 years old. I think the thing I was most amazed about was just the fact that they were able to take down the Patriots. I was in disbelief. But then 2011 came around. I remember during that summer before the season started, I was convincing my friend. We were walking the streets of New York City. I'm like, Eli Manning's an elite quarterback. I don't like you can't spell elite without Eli. I just I don't remember everything I said to him, but I remember I convinced him that the Giants were going to win that Super Bowl. They had the roster. This was during the hype of the Eagles when they got Vince Young and Nandi Asumwa, and everybody thought that they were on their way to winning a Super Bowl. Even though like, Vince Young obviously was a backup, but landing Nandi Asumwa during that time, that you know
when he was top of the league at that point, and then shortly fell off.
yeah, he flopped on the Eagles, and I remember when they were talking about being a dream team like LeBron and the Heat. I'm like, no, like stop being so delusional. I was like, the Giants got this. I remember thinking, and our season can't kind of start off slow. We were 0-2 to start the season, but I was like, nah, I'm not quitting on this team. We got this shit. And lo and behold, Victor Cruz emerged during that season. That was one of the best seasons I've ever watched of Giants football. Just seeing Victor Cruz come from nothing and get cut the year before due to injury, but then come back and just show that he's an elite wide receiver. I think he and Eli had just such a great chemistry and great camaraderie that was able to bring the best out of each other. And it just propelled the Giants for the rest of the season. They're able to beat the Cowboys and the NFC Championship, not NFC East, like decider to win the division. I remember the Giants came out on top on that, and then they had a long road to go in that Super Bowl. They had first had to take care of business against the Falcons at home. I mean, the Falcons are no slouch, but I had no doubt that we were going to beat the Falcons. But then The real test came against Green Bay. Green Bay, I think, lost once or twice that season. Um, Simply put, not many people gave us a chance to beat Green, especially with Aaron Rodgers being his friend. But we went into Green Bay after the first half was over. I remember the Giants. I think it was Victor Cruz that caught the touchdown at the end of the first half to just put the Giants on top and like give them such a big margin. I remember thinking it's over, man. It's over, and you know we settled business in Green Bay the rest of the game. I had no doubt after the first half. But then San Francisco the week after. Oh, that was a double overtime madness, man. That was just a thriller. Everybody on my couch, like in my family, we were all invested in that game. We were all everybody. Like I'm the only Giants fan in my family. My dad's an Eagles fan. My brother's a Jets fan. But we were all invested. Like my heart rate was spiking, during that entire overtime. And I just knew, but in my hearts of hearts, that somehow, some way, we were gonna prevail, and we did, man. We just came out on top, and then came the real test against the Patriots in that second Super Bowl. I remember discussing with my friend, like, I told you that they were gonna do this, and you know, it was just destined for the Giants and the Patriots to meet again. But we were also saying, but if the Giants don't finish off business against the Patriots, um, it might erase the glory of beating the undefeated Patriots. I'm like, no, it's not going to. We're gonna beat them again. I have full confidence. It was Mario Manningham that caught a pass, right over his head. I was like, this mirrors um, the Super Bowl of 4 years prior. So, you know, eventually went on to win that game, but it took a butterfingered miss by Wes Welker to seal the deal because Tom Brady had everything going for him during the final minute of that game. I remember Ahmad Bradshaw, eventually got the touchdown, and a lot of people thought it was premature,
Yeah,
but
he tried sitting down because he realized too late to stop. I remember that. It was like, what are you doing?
yeah, just all in all, that's what Eli was all about. He he didn't have the most glamorous stats some seasons. There were seasons where he threw too many interceptions, and he was always in the shadow of Peyton Manning. But all in all, he came away with two championships in New York. That's not easy to do, and he came up big in some of the most difficult cities to play in historically in football history. So that enough right there. Not only did he beat the Patriots, he beat the 49ers, he beat the Packers twice, and he beat the Cowboys in Dallas during their first run. So, you know, Eli, hey, thank you for giving the Giants fans something to cheer for and coming up big when it counted most, even when uh, there are a lot of critics about you. But just thank you, man. Thanks for everything. And in my book, you're a first ballot Hall of Famer.
And I, if he's not first ballot, he's gonna be pretty quickly. I mean, again, the accolades are there. 4-time Pro Bowler, 2-time Super Bowl champion, an off the field award, Walter Payton Man of the Year in 2016. I know there was at once a kerfuffle of some memorabilia scandal or something that was just, it did not appear to be anything legitimate, and there are far worse things to be involved with. But Eli, for everything that you see him in person and you see how he carries himself, he's always been a very classy guy. And people make memes and stuff, and people will make jokes about certain portions or games in his career, but this is a guy whose numbers are very, very solid. And again, we talked about he's high up on the yardage list. And one of the things, of course, that he was known for was his durability, solid playoff numbers. I know there was a number of years where it was one and done, but 8-4 in the playoffs all time. He's also 57,023 yards, 366 touchdowns. There's just no doubt in my mind that he is a guy that belongs in the class of the Hall of Fame. And I understand that he had some down years, and especially in recent years where the team has had issues around him as he's gotten older. You kind of have to support your quarterback more, even if he's a franchise guy. Tom Brady is just a complete and utter anomaly. Whereas if you're talking about most quarterbacks, when they get to the point that Eli's at, they're gonna have that slowdown, and if you don't have a good team around them, there's gonna be trouble. So, at the end of the day, this is I think a no-brainer for me, and for me, I think as well. The ability to rise to the occasion in the clutch is not it's not to be underplayed. So, with that said, I do think he will be if not first ballot, very, very high and very quickly into the Hall of Fame when he is eligible. I don't think it'll take more than if it's not the first time, maybe 2 or 3 years, but we'll see. There's a lot of debate over that. There's a lot of people that says he shouldn't be and that he's in the Hall very good, but I disagree completely. And he's got numbers that stack up with a lot of different people. And again, being top 10 in yards is no small feat. Samir, I can't speak with the same perspective that you are because I'm not a Giants fan, but I'll always also with the class of 2004, Eli, Phil Rivers, and Ben Roethlisberger, they're always going to be compared to one another. And then, we can get more into that in another discussion, another podcast for another day. But Eli more than holds his own with two very, very good quarterbacks in both Big Ben and Phil Rivers. And again, just you probably make a case that he carried himself better than both of them at times in his career. Not that really Phil Rivers has been accused of any wrongdoing, but he's a fiery guy, which isn't a bad thing, but, has some moments where he probably would like back, in some of the post-game pressers, but minor things nonetheless. But in any case, Eli Manning, Hall of Famer in my book. And Samir, brings me to the final point here to discuss today is obviously this Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday. I don't know what it's like back home in New York, but back out here in Nebraska, we're getting some uncharacteristically cold, warm weather. We're going to be about 60 degrees on Sunday, and I'm hoping that it translates into a hot game here where we get a good back and forth. And I'm very curious to hear your prediction. I've been doing my best to follow the NFL this season. I've been able to follow it more than I did last year when I was away for work quite a bit. But I have my thoughts. I'd like to hear yours. Great matchup in my mind, the Chiefs and the Niners, two of the better teams all year. And of course, it's been a long time since both of them have been in the Super Bowl. It was not as long for the 49ers. They're back in 2011, but it's been quite a while since they've won, going back to, I believe, the early 90s or late 80s. I can't remember their last Super Bowl year that they won. And then, of course, for the Chiefs, it's been 50 years since they've even appeared in the Super Bowl. So all of that said, I think two exciting teams. I'm very curious to hear who you got in this matchup Sunday.
I got the Chiefs, man. I think Patrick Mahomes is just way too good, man. He's just way too good of a quarterback. He'll always find a way to get the offense rolling. If you shut down his passing lanes and routes by wide receivers, he'll find a way to run the ball and to the line and pick up another first down. So he's just very powerful in that regard. He can take it on his own and take it into the end zone. I think right there, he's just completely just a multi-dimensional quarterback, and I think that'll be hard while the 49ers defense is really good, I think that'll just prove to be too much for them to handle. And I was very impressed by the Chiefs' ability in their last game to shut down Derrick Henry, Derrick Henry was very hot in the first two games of the playoffs. And I mean, obviously, he's one of the game's best running backs. I think he started to really make a name for himself this season. He was mostly underrated for the last few years, but I think this year's playoffs kind of served as a coming out party. The Chiefs are able to shut down the Titans, who many people thought that the Titans had the chance to win the Super Bowl this year after beating New England and going on to beat Baltimore. Yeah, they had the makings of a Cinderella team, but the Chiefs took it in their own hands and they were able to shut it down. And I think they have all the momentum going for them. I think Patrick Mahomes will kind of be the second, just like him and Lamar Jackson will be the second coming and start a new era of quarterback greatness. So I think this is gonna be the Chiefs' year, and it should be a first for at least a couple for Patrick Mahomes.
I think, Samir, I'm worried. I'm worried, Samir, because I very much love watching Patrick Mahomes play. I think he's probably the most entertaining player in football. He or Lamar Jackson, one of the two. Jackson is the better runner. Mahomes is the better thrower of the ball. And Mahomes does things that, frankly, put very few people have ever done on this earth, if ever. I don't even know if Aaron Rodgers has the arm talent that Patrick Mahomes does. But why I'm worried is this has a lot of similarities to the Broncos Seahawks Super Bowl of yesteryear. It's about 7 years ago, I think now. I think it was the 2013 Super Bowl, if my memory serves, maybe 2014. I can't remember which year it was. But in any case, very offensive team, and the Broncos rolled in. They were historically just successful on the offensive side. Peyton Manning was in his last great season. Now he won the Super Bowl the following year with on the back of his great defense, but I am worried that this is going to be a redux because I have seen the 49ers bludgeon teams into oblivion, and like unlike any other team has done this year. I know there've been blowouts. I know the Ravens did it to a lot of teams, so I shouldn't say anybody, but the 49ers defense is ferocious. And while I am rooting for the Chiefs, my brain is telling me that this is the 49ers game to lose. If they take away like you said, you can't take away Patrick Mahomes, but I don't know how they're going to solve that 49ers front, because 49ers defensive front is just absurd. They're all first round picks. They've dominated so many games this year. I don't like him, but Nick Bosa is a ferocious player. He's a very, very good player. As a rookie, he's better than 95% of the league at his position. And I think the defensive front is going to win this game because the secondary is good for the 49ers. I don't think it'll be a blowout. I think it's going to be a good game, and that's all I want. I like I said, I'm leaning towards the Chiefs because I think Mahomes is great, and I want Andy Reid to get a Super Bowl. I think he's long overdue. He's a good guy. He's been through a lot, not just in football, but beyond that with some family stuff. And I'm really hoping that he does get the win for him and for Patrick Mahomes, because Mahomes deserves every cent he gets. He is just a phenomenal player. Unlike, I think, many that we've ever seen. People compare him to Aaron Rodgers. I think he's better. I think he's better than Aaron Rodgers, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it is early, but I think he does have the potential. I think he definitely does have the potential to be better than Aaron Rodgers one day. But, I mean, I think he has the potential to definitely have more Super Bowls than him one day. Yeah, we'll see.
I think with Rodgers, too, he's been tremendous. And yes, he's had some teams that have been flawed, but you've seen quarterbacks of that ilk take teams that are flawed. I understand the Chiefs' defense has played a lot better in the last 6 weeks of the regular season, and they've played well in the postseason. And that's, I think, a lot of it due to coaching. Some of their players have really stepped up, but this 49ers coaching staff is tremendous. The Shanahans, Kyle and his dad as an assistant, they have an unbelievable football knowledge, and they scheme like nobody else in the league right now. Even the Patriots, I think, would fall second to them this season, because not only do they have the scheme, they have the talent. Now, of course, every day of the week, I'd take Mahomes over Jimmy Garoppolo, but the running game isn't just a sum of one player like Derrick Henry with the Titans, or you can name a number of running backs that are really good in this league. But it's the scheme, it's the variety. They have multiple running backs they can throw out there, and I think they're going to keep Mahomes off the field because the Chiefs, the one biggest weakness in their defense at times has been their run defense, and it's been pushed around in the past. The 49ers get that going, forget it. I think they're going to win this game. I do think what the Chiefs will do is they'll put all their eggs into stopping the run game of the 49ers. They'll force Jimmy G to beat them. He can, but I think it'll be a lot closer if he has to be the one to beat them. And I just think at the end of the day, whether it be Richard Sherman, whether it be one of the linebackers, whether it be one of the defensive ends, defensive tackles, I just think someone on that 49ers defense is going to make a play to be the difference maker in this game. I think Mahomes will play well, as he always does, but I hope I'm wrong. I think the 49ers are going to eke this one out. I think it's going to be relatively close. I'm thinking something like 37-33, and I think it will be a great game, and that's all I want. But Samir, I don't know. What are you thinking for score? I know you got the Chiefs, but what do you think the score is going to be?
You know what? It's probably around the same ballpark as you. I'm thinking it'll be a high scoring game though. This is going to be. I mean, yeah, the 49ers defense is really good, but I think Chiefs will have an answer for it. So I'm going to go with. Let's say 39-33.
Okay, all right. I like that. I like the unique scores like that because that means there's been some special plays and whatnot. And I just think the coaching is even. I think both coaches are great, but I think the Shanahans have been ridiculous this year. And I think that the problem is with the Chiefs at times they've started slow in quite a few games, especially in the playoffs this year, and you cannot do that against the 49ers, and you're not going to get that comeback that they have in the past this postseason. But like I said, I hope I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'll be happy because Mahomes, Reed, I like both those guys a lot. There was a great story circulating Twitter last week or 2 weeks ago where Mahomes a few weeks before that had gone into a popular restaurant in Kansas City. Clear view. He was in clear view of the whole restaurant with his girlfriend, and no one bugged him, no one bothered him, no one asked him for a photo or an autograph. They all let him eat in peace. And then he got up, and with his girlfriend, they had paid and left, and turned around at the door to exit the restaurant and said, "Thank you all for letting me eat in peace, letting us eat in peace. I love all of you. This is why I love Kansas City." And turned out he paid for every single person in the restaurant's meal, which is pretty awesome. That's some stuff that a young quarterback doing something like that, that's just he gets it, and that's really cool. And I think he is a great player for this game, and I'm excited to see his career, even if it's at the expense of my Pittsburgh Steelers at times. We'll get him. I'm hoping we draft the next Patrick Mahomes, which of course there is no next Patrick Mahomes.
The thing is about that though is that, man, like like if I was a kid, like, do you think there'd be any way, like, if I looked up to Patrick Mahomes, if I was a little kid, that I would let him eat in peace? I'd be like, nah, man, like, this is my idol. Like, think about it, if I saw Vince Carter sitting down at like a local pizza shop somewhere in New Jersey, you think I'm gonna leave him alone? Nah, man. I'll be like, oh my god, this is Vince Carter. But like, credit to those guys, man, for uh, just letting him be. I don't know how they're able to do that, especially if there are little kids there that look up to him. I give him a lot of credit. I guess times are changing because of social media, and you get to kind of see more of them, so they become more, I guess, a little bit more like human in the eyes of people because you get to see them more frequently than you would have back then. You kind of have access to seeing more of their personality on social media, so it's almost kind of like you are meeting them. But I mean, sometimes you just get lucky if you're a star athlete that nobody's gonna bug you. If you're a grown man, yeah, absolutely, you gotta leave them alone. But for a little kid, man, like I'm surprised, man, that not one little kid in that environment felt compelled to go up to him and try to like meet him.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's restaurants. I think restaurants might have something to do with that as far as just it's a little bit more of a controlled setting, but even so I think I'm surprised too. I think you're right. I think and Patrick Mahomes was surprised. I'm sure he's used to getting stopped. He's an iconic guy. You're going to recognize him walking down the street. And I'm sure he's used to that, and to have a nice meal in peace and in the midst of a playoff run, that's pretty awesome. So Samir's got the Chiefs. I've got the Niners. Should be a great game. It should be a wonderful, wonderful Super Bowl. I've already seen the Mr. Peanut commercial, which I thought was amazing. So I'm hopeful for the Super Bowl ads this year. And I don't think you can get much worse than the halftime show last year. I thought it was just a mess. So I'm looking forward to that too. Yeah, it was just boring. And it's like I didn't even mind that individually, the artists that were in last year's halftime show, I don't have an issue with, but when they were all put together, it didn't make any sense. It was just like, why are we going from Sicko Mode to Maroon 5? Like, I don't get that at all. I don't understand. Like, and I'm all for crossovers and stuff, but it just wasn't organized well. And then Adam Levine's ripping his shirt off, and people are screaming, and it's just didn't feel like a good show. It just felt very forced and bleh. So all of those things. Normally, I don't really care if like the Steelers were in the game or if I was invested heavily in the Super Bowl, but I just want a good game, and I think we're gonna get one. So I'm excited. I'm gonna go over to the girlfriend's family's place and enjoy some football. Samir, I think that is going to do it for us this week on this edition of Shooting the Breeze, this weekend, I should say. And, of course, next time, Samir, I look forward to diving back in with you. And as always, thanks again for giving me your time. And, looking forward to the next one.
Likewise, Tib. It's always a pleasure coming on, talking sports. Sports is just a beautiful thing. Just want to share the positive things that has to offer to this world, and hopefully we can continue to do that.
Well said, and that'll do it for us this week. We'll see you next time on Shooting the Breeze.